Good evening, everyone. It's good to see a large number of folk here. I think this evening, as Brian's already said, really want to keep it to a discussion. So if you can stick your hands up, and one of us will pick up on it and come to you. I think public image, it's a vast subject, and there's no right or wrong way of doing public image. What I think I want to do this evening is to look at what we view as our image and what we think the public image of Rotary is. And I'm sure there are two contrasting ideas. Public image, to me, is the image that you put out there to people, and it's what they see us as. But really, I think we need to look and see what we think our image is, and then step back and look at what the public image may be of Rotary as a whole. So if we can go around the room and get some ideas of what you think your view is of the image that we portray. How do you think Rotary looks to Joe Public?
I can ask you to, if you use the reactions button to raise your hand, that'll flip you up. And then I will call your name, and Philip Ross is first in the queue. If you unmute yourself, Philip, and go for it.
So I happened to be speaking to somebody this morning, and they were saying, "Oh, what's Rotary?" And I said, you might have thought that it was all men, older, meeting for lunch frequently. And I said, and she said, would you be wrong? Would I be wrong if I thought that? And I said, yes, we've tried to change. The perception out there is still how Rotary was 15 years ago. I think we need to change people's perception so that we have an equal gender, younger age group as well as an older age group. So the perception out there is still not good as far as I can see.
Okay, James, thank you, Philip. James,
thanks, Philip.
Unmute yourself, James.
Yeah, I think it's really dependent. This is on my own personal view, by the way. I think it's dependent on what type of activity we are involving the community in. Take ourselves with the Christmas sleigh last year, a hugely very successful evening. We got to speak to families with children, and we were grateful for the comments received. And at the end of the day, nothing came of it. Against that, say we're doing a bucket collection. Again, the public are very supportive in what Rotary does, but I don't think deep down the public realise what Rotary is all about.
Yeah. Thanks, James.
Okay. Rob from Afford, if you could unmute.
Yes, hi. I think the crucial thing for me is how people perceive depends where the club is, but really how they see us depends on how we see ourselves first. And I think that's the problem. Ian Dow there, I see, might remember from years ago, when you try to give more control, or when people are constantly saying we'll get young people involved, you have to give up some of the things that you hold so precious. Unfortunately, you know, you have to give some control away in order to change things. I don't think enough people generally want to do that, so we retain the old slightly fuddy-duddy image, I think, generally. Not everybody, but I think generally that image will stay as long as we're not in our hearts prepared to change ourselves.
Thanks, Rob. Lindsay from Alloa, if you could unmute and see you're on.
Okay. I've just been flicking through the Rotary magazine that just arrived through our doors. And I'm going to tell you what I found. I found cruises, care homes, comfortable trousers, compression socks, merino sweaters, accessible baths, costly timeshares, and gated communities for the wealthy over 60s. So for that reason, I will never, ever put a Rotary magazine in my local library or dental waiting room or whatever. Just want to say that.
All these things are very useful, you have to say. Listen.
Only if you are a certain profile.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you, Lindsay. Kath?
Kath?
Yeah, thanks very much, Brian. Every so often, I take the last 25 Rotary Facebook posts that have arrived in my feed. And what it does is reinforces just, I think, what Philip was saying earlier on. Generally speaking, we're old men eating meals. It's just fantastic to see photographs of half-empty pint glasses on a table. It motivates me so well. We're obsessed with the way we operate. We tell people that we're going to exchange chains. Do they care? No. We're obsessed with having speakers, and we're obsessed with giving word by word what the speaker said, so that people looking at Facebook haven't got a clue what we actually do, as far as I can see. But every so often we put a photograph in of us begging in Tesco's, and then we beg in Tesco's in fancy dress in the winter time. And you wonder why people don't join. It's because we give this appalling image of ourselves. I should say that the Facebook posts are not necessarily District 1010. They're just all the ones I'm friendly with. But honestly, until we actually show people doing something interesting, we will not increase membership, and we will not give a very good impression of ourselves. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Kath. Okay, Jennifer and Bobby, and I'm guessing it's Jennifer. If you unmute, Jennifer.
Here we are. I don't know what we do. I try to get pictures of us, litter picking in the press. We did a family fun day. We run the kids' Highland Games. There are pictures of us in tabards planting crocus corms, and it's women, and it's open neck shirts or sweaters if it's Christmas, if it's winter. And they still think we're over 60, all male, all white, all wearing suits. I don't know what we do to change the image. It doesn't matter what you put out there. The minute you mention Rotary, they have this image in their heads.
Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. John from Alloa.
Hey, Devin. Yeah, so image, I'm a relatively new member to Rotary, and if you'd asked me, say, 18 months ago, what's my opinion of Rotary, I would say it's full of retired old business owners, going for lunch every week. Not relevant for me, because I can't afford the time, can't afford the meals, can't afford the commitment, not quite sure what they do. Old men don't talk to one another, and basically they're quite happy in their own company, and they don't really want to engage. They don't work well with other clubs. They don't engage any social media. They don't engage the way we communicate these days. And that could be true in some areas, but I know Rotary of old, and I know it's actually full of committed people. And the thing we actually really bad at doing is we don't actually know what we are ourselves. We don't know. It's not a case of actually trying to recruit young people. It's a case of trying to recruit people with the right attitude. It's the attitude we should be focusing on, and actually the skills and what we're looking for. So we're trying to look around things around fun, friendship, fundraising, because no matter what the areas of focus are for Rotary, it basically boils down to those things. That's what we're in this to do. This is why we come along to the Rotary meetings week after week and actually shake the tins, go along to the events and support each other.
Thank you, John. Neil from Kerrymere.
Thanks, Brian. To be perfectly honest, I think Rob hit the nail on the head. And all I want to say is that back in 2019, we all sat at a visioning exercise and we were told to try to decide what we wanted our club to look like in 2022. That's the year we're now in. We in Kirriemuir set about that exercise with great gusto. We made many democratic decisions, and certain people didn't want to accept these democratic decisions. The outcome now is we have 2 clubs, and I don't think we've made any progress whatsoever, because we didn't stick by the visioning and take it through to the bitter end. If democracy no longer counts, then there's no way of winning.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you.
Okay.
Dave, can I pass back to you?
Some
And
interesting comments there, and I think we're all kind of singing from. Yeah. Yep. I think, you know, listening to everybody there, I think we've all got a similar idea that, you know, we're seeing the image as being fuddy-duddy, to coin a phrase. The press won't pick up on a fuddy-duddy image. One of the other things that I picked up in the last Rotary magazine, right in the last page, somebody mentioned tabards. What do we need tabards for? We shouldn't need tabards. I can understand using tabards if we are on duty at the roadside, litter picking, that sort of thing. But, you know, we were at an event at the weekend and our colleagues from the other club were there. And we said, we don't want to wear tabards. It made not a blind bit of difference. You see a yellow high-vis tabard, oh, he's a marshal. That's the sort of first impression you get. If we get rid of the tabards, that's one way of getting rid of one of the barriers, I think. And you're then seen as a Rotarian. Look at the corporate image, be it polo shirts, T-shirts, whatever. And instead of just having your name on the front, look at putting Rotary Alloa on the back in big letters, so people know where you're from. That's one way of getting an image across. Talking to people, explaining it to them, making ourselves more approachable. It's not going to happen overnight, but we do have to change that perception that the public have of us. And it's finding the way to do that we need to identify. So we've probably answered the first 2 questions I've got on my sheet in one. Public image is that we're fuddy-duddy, we're old men eating out. We need to be out in the community showing the public what we do. Yes, they see us doing things. They'll put money in the collecting box. They'll come out, they'll support events, but we've got to make sure we're promoting, when we're doing events, what Rotary is about. And it isn't us sitting down to a meal every week. That gets costly. I think we've all discovered that. So it has to be affordable. We've got to make sure we're telling people that. In Kerry, we've got rid of the meals pretty much completely, and we charge a tenner a month. And I think we're putting a pound each in the pot, or whatever we want in the pot, for a cup of tea and a biscuit. Yes, we'll have a meal, but it won't be on a club night. We'll move that away and do it as a social function. So what do we do to improve the image? And then we can start with.
So that's the question. What do we do to improve our image? And Tony, you're up first.
Hi, everybody. I agree with him. We all, like you say, are all on the same page. I like to comment about the Rotary magazine. But my question is, or suggestion is, we're saying about the image. How often do we invite the public or the reporters from the local paper or maybe the local radio to know that we're trying to change our image? Because they've got that image, right? We've all said that, they've got that image. But how are we trying to explain it to others that we've changed in the public's eyes? That's probably where we need to start, not with ourselves, but how do we reach the public to change that image? Now, could it be that we invite the paper, instead of sending them a story, invite the reporter along to hear that, to try and get that message out? That's me.
Yeah, if I could just comment on that, Tony, I think you're absolutely right, because I think what we need to do is get over the impact of what we do. And too often we talk about the process of what we're doing. And I was speaking to Dave last night about Ryla kids, and we'll show a picture of the president with the Ryla kids. And you kind of think, why is the president in that picture? Why is it not a picture of the Ryla kids and statements from the Ryla kids? And you've opened up a new dimension there. Get the local press in to interview the Ryla kids about their experience, and stressing that it was Rotary made that possible. Yeah, definitely. Ian Dow.
Yeah, thank you. I think a lot of it is about service and about going out there and saying the right thing to the right people, talking about Rotary. Every other weekend, I'm out doing car boots for Rotary. I always have leaflets on the table, as well as selling things, but also at least one banner so people know they're from Rotary. And we encourage them to ask, well, why are you raising the money? What are you raising it for? And we just talk about Rotary. We're out there providing service. And it's very successful because a lot of people do want to ask. Whether they follow it up is another story. But it is very important to just be telling the story and speaking about it. We enjoy doing that, and we do raise money at the same time, which is good. But it also gets people to talk about the projects that we're involved in. And I've managed to collect 1 or 2 volunteers into one of the local Aberdeen projects purely because they've talked to us at a car boot sale. So yeah, it does work.
Right. Thank you, Ian. Mary.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to pick up on your point. Were you saying that we shouldn't be wearing tabards or high-vis vests or whatever?
Yeah, I think it's something that Rotary RGBI have picked up on, and I think you'll find that the press won't appreciate it. If we're all seen in high vis, it's like any other picture. It's like 6 men looking down an empty hole. We don't need a tabard. We can promote with, as Ian said, a banner, something a bit more punchy, and the information can be conveyed in the story.
Okay, I think I was at the event I think you were speaking about. Was it the Granite City Rally? Grampian Forest Rally? Sorry, you still there, Dave? No.
Hang on, I may have clicked on the wrong person there.
I missed that, Mary. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I missed
sorry,
that.
I was at the Grampian City Rally on Saturday that you're speaking about, because we were there on Saturday, all with high-vis vests on, but they had Rotary things on the back. Now we had to wear the high-vis vests because we were stopping cars and taking money. So
yeah, that's a different story.
Yeah, but we did have Rotary on the back. So
yeah. I think there's a time when you need to wear a high vis, but if you're in the middle of a park on a stand,
okay,
you don't need a high vis.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay, can I bring in Robin Wardle? He's been waving his hand furiously in the background. Robin?
I just think that if we're showing photographs of what we've done in our clubs, then we should include our young members, not our old fuddy-duddy members like myself. I've done it, but I feel that younger members should be seen in the photographs, and that shows that we're making progress and we're bringing in younger people.
Yeah, so if you're putting members in the photograph, think carefully about which members you're showing. That's basically it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Lindsay.
I'd like to just ask everybody not to beat themselves up too much about having this image. I think we've become almost over obsessed with it, and that it'd be far handier, because I've been to a few public image seminars now, and mostly they're saying, stop doing this, stop doing that, don't do this, look at that awful photograph, which is very depressing for the average Rotarian, especially if you have new people along. I'd like to offer maybe half a dozen ideas briefly that seem to hit the mark. One of them is to make use of volunteers who are not necessarily Rotarians, because while you have those volunteers out working with you, you have got every opportunity to spend time showing them that we do great stuff and encouraging them to perhaps become Rotarians. And quite often they are younger people, or heaven forfend, female. Also, we should attend other people's events as Rotary, even if it's one of us going along and being part of other people's events, because we can pick up a lot of information about the community, and we can get a chance, usually even if it's just going around and saying who you are and why you're there, you get a chance to say something good about Rotary, and as long as you pick the right thing to say, you've got an opportunity there. Clearly, we should have good social media on the go, and I'm not going to labour that point, the right kind of pictures, you know, not the wrong kind of pictures and all that stuff. And it should be regularly updated. It's not that difficult to get something into the paper each month. I find it quite easy. In fact, they're phoning us frequently to say, what are you doing now? And as long as you write the story for them virtually and give them the quotes and send a couple of good pictures, we find that they do print it. And I think it's well worth doing, because although print media, we were all told, was going to go out of fashion, I don't think it has. I think the local press is more important now than ever it was. So I do, because there are people who are not using social media and they are buying the local papers. One of the things that we've chosen to do in Alloa is to help other people to raise money by running events. And again, that brings in a whole squad of new people, because if you're setting up an event at which other people can take part and raise money for their group, their brownies or their football team, then all these people who really actually don't quite care that it's Rotary have an exposure to Rotary during the event, and they go, oh, right, well, this is you guys. Okay, what a great idea. Thank you very much for helping us to raise funds for our own. I mean, obviously we get some sort of cut as well with a wee entrance fee or something, but I think that's another way to engage with a public that otherwise wouldn't come anywhere near us. And we as individuals or groups can volunteer at other people's events as well. We can go and marshal the local half marathon or that sort of thing. And again, we're mixing with another gang of people who find out that we're not the middle-aged fuddy-duddies that they thought we might be. Also, when we're having little team meetings to plan projects, not big meetings, our business meetings and all that sort of thing, but, you know, if your environmental group, for example, is the environmental team is going out to have a wee meeting to plan something that they're going to do, then why not hold it in a public place? I think that our last one was held in the local Syrian restaurant so that we could engage with the people in the Syrian refugee community that are living with us just now, and say, you know, this is a wee Rotary meeting. Is it all right if we do that at your table? Which again engages with another community. And rather than having people in, I mean, we do have people in to give talks as we choose, but we need to go out there and give talks as well. And people will immediately, if you're known to be willing to go and give a talk about the Rotary, and we find that people will want to hear from you, and that's your opportunity to get it right, not get it wrong. And possibly, finally, a wee trick, we made these A boards, which are very simple, you know, like sandwich board sort of things. And it just says Rotary in action. And you can plonk them down wherever you are, whatever you're doing. And it allows people to see that these people who are planting that crocus or whatever, from a distance, it's Rotary in action. So that's a wee list of things. And maybe if this is recorded, it's something that people can have a wee listen to later and maybe take in a wee bit.
Nice, very much indeed, Lindsay. That's absolutely brilliant. Right, really like that. Libby.
Hi, thanks. Well, a lot of the things that Lindsay's just said were very similar to what I was going to say. So I would just say, that's brilliant, Lindsay. That's exactly, I think, how it should be. I think the other thing that is sometimes wrong is, as an assistant governor, and I go around clubs, is that there doesn't seem to be an awful lot of passion sometimes. And I think we need to speak about Rotary with passion and enthusiasm and fun, and not just, you know, it's ever so serious. And I mean, just picking up on some of the comments that have been said, I mean, during COVID, when we were doing a function here with some other club, my niece was with me, and, you know, all she could see was, she said everybody was of a certain age, most folk had grey hair, and they were just all sitting there very middle class, and it just looked so dull. Now, we know that that's not necessarily how it is, but it's difficult on Zoom. But as I go around clubs, sometimes I just feel I want to shake people and say, come on, you know, what else can we do and how can we do it differently? So I think it's about passion, it's about enthusiasm, and when we're working in collaboration with other groups. So my club is Carnegie, one of 3 in Dunfermline, and we do a lot of the things that Lindsay's just talked about. So we work on a Lindburn regeneration programme with green finger people, with play and grow people, with different litter pickers, with the Countryside Trust. And every time you're with that group, you chat about and you get to know, and then you do another event or activity, and they say, oh, hi Libby, what have you been doing? And oh, and we talk about different things that we've been doing and different activities. You get to know these people, and you work together and you collaborate. And it's something else that I try to promote as I go around lots of clubs. The other one that Lindsay talked about, similar thing about working with others and raising money for others. We used to do a swim marathon pre-COVID. So we organised the event, we invited people to send in teams, and it was a 50-50 split. So they got themselves sponsored, we had 50%, and it went to End Polio Now, and the other 50% they got for themselves. So all they had to do was turn up for 45 minutes on a Sunday, job done. And it went really, really well, you know, obviously till COVID stopped all of that. So I think collaboration is really important, but more than anything, it needs to be, as you go out and speak to people, it needs to be with passion and enthusiasm. And another simple example to finish is, I was at my sister's neighbourhood party, all the neighbours in, some of them are relatively new, and you're just chatting, oh, what do you do? I know I do this and I do that. And I didn't realise just how much I was saying about Rotary. And by the end of that party, I've got somebody who's coming along to our club tomorrow night. And she said, oh, I never realised actually all the things that Rotary does and what it's like. And I think that's what makes the difference. So that's what I think is really, really important. Thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, Libby. When I lived up in Nairn, I took part in a biathlon 3 times without realising that it was the local Rotary that ran it, and until I actually joined the local Rotary. So it's just amazing. John Allen from Alloa.
Hi again. I've just shared a little link in the chat window there. At the top of the meeting, we were actually talking about how bad it is to be a member of Rotary, and you know, we don't actually like to sell ourselves. And as a new member coming in, I actually came to the fresh set of eyes to find out what it is, you know, on the back of the pandemic, what do people know? There's lots of people been in for years in our Rotary Club, and there's some really, really good work that goes on. But depending on when you actually join during the course of the year, it's brilliant as a new member because you find out where all the gaps are. Because you come along to a meeting, you know what actually, you hear about the things that's coming up, you don't have no idea at all what's actually happened in the last 3 months or even the last 12 months. And I actually introduced a concept of Microsoft Sway. And I built this up around the individual team groups that we have, and basically did effectively like an audit to find out what have we done in the past 12 months, and try to capture, say, 10 things from each of the conveners to say, what have we actually achieved? And that was actually quite telling, because some of the Rotarians, the club have been there for years, weren't aware of all the projects and how successful some things were. This has now gone around the entire club. So everyone's now singing from the same hymn sheet. So everybody, if you bump into anyone from Alloa Rotary Club that's potentially a member, we have a QR code on this Sway page. I'll put the little link in the chat window there for you. But effectively, if anyone wants this, I've got a step-by-step guide, and please pass this on to whoever does anything remotely technical, it's nothing worse than using Microsoft Excel, I assure you. And you can copy what we've got and then just amend it for your own club if that would actually help you. And I can tell you at the moment, I've got 555 unique visitors to it, and it's been seen by people over in America as well. So it is taking off. So on this one document, I'm holding things like the membership team. We've got banners up around the community. We've got bike rides coming up. This is how much we've raised for Ukraine Appeal. There's links off, there's photographs at Wimpy Park when we've been on Beech Grove. Rotary's been out actually helping young people, old people, people of working age. And the next stage, the next iteration of what we've got is to then basically like critically look back at our own Rotary Club, because the one thing that we continue to fail to actually appreciate when you're Rotarian, and we actually talk about how bad it is to have all those grey, middle-aged or elderly Rotarians in there that have been running business for years, we've come out of the worst financial shock the world has seen in I don't know how many generations, but Rotary's there, and Rotary could actually be the trusted sounding board because we've got no axe to grind. And between our networks, if any, we can actually support any business in a unique way that, say, Business Gateway can't. We can be there if someone's actually looking for a bit of assistance on being a trusted friend to say, I'm thinking about setting up to do this or expanding my business or changing the model. What do you think I could do with a second set of eyes over it? We've actually got the skills and we've got the, in Rotary to support that type of dialogue. But the unique position is that Rotary are not in any competition with actually the provision of that local business. So I think there's actually something in there we can do to help. And through that, and through that dialogue, we may actually even hoover up a few potential new members. So I don't know if anyone can actually get into the chat window, someone they're having a look, but if they have a look at that, there's a little link on the bottom to say there's a step-by-step guide in here as well. We can take them through that too. But I've got some positive feedback on that so far, and I've also had a little wooden block made up for when we go out to the galas, because everyone will appreciate if you've got like Rotary leaflets on top of Polio Plus, etc. You can guarantee when all the leaflets are out, it's the windiest day possible, your leaflets go flying. So we've got a nice bit of sustainable Scottish oak with a QR code embedded on it, rather than putting a brick on top of all the posters on there. And so Rotary's banner is always on display. So I know some people comment about using tabards, if we should actually have high-vis or not. I think it's important we should show Rotary's logo, and actually we are brand Rotary. We're important. And I think if Rotary's seen there, then I think that carries an awful lot of weight as well, and gives, extras to the overall event. It's more likely that the press will then pick up on it. I'll pause.
Thank you, John. I've saved the chat. So I think I should be able to pull out your links from that. Thanks very much. Right, Ken McLennan. Ken.
Yeah, thanks very much. So lots of good ideas there, but what are we going to do differently? What are you going to do differently tomorrow? What should Rotary look like? We've talked what it shouldn't look like. And I'm not convinced Rotarians know what it should look like. I think the right people to ask are future Rotarians. And if we ask future Rotarians what Rotary should look like and feel like, we need to change ourselves and change our image to look like what new Rotarians want as well. And there's lots of good ideas that we've heard for that. So what are you going to put on your club web page, on your Facebook page, on your communications, on your leaflets? What are you going to do to say, what's in it for me if I join Rotary? So that you can invite younger people in. And younger people want, the surveys tell us, the opportunity to lead. They want mentorship, they want friendship, they want working together. They want to be able to lead a project. So what are you offering, and how are you going to show that instead of photographs of people having lunch or dinner or whatever? How are you going to show the photographs of the good we do? And I'm going to steal something from Alistair Robb, I see he's up next on this. And he says, it's don't sell the sausage, sell the sizzle. I'll let Alistair talk more about that. But let's make sure that what we are selling is what people want. And let's change our clubs if they need changed to what people want, not what we want, but what the future Rotary wants. So I'm going to hand it over back to you, Brian.
Thank you. And I'll immediately pass the buck to Alistair Robb. as our membership chair.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks, Ken, for stealing my finishing line. And what I wanted to say was, one thing as I've kind of gone through life, and someone said this to me a long time ago, and it stuck with me, and that is, as we go through life, people will forget what we've done, but they'll always remember how we've made them feel. And we have to get cynical. We have to start eliciting some feelings around what we do. We have to start getting people really buying in to the things that we do. And I'm sorry, but there's an awful lot of things that we do that people are not buying into. And I'm not going to start picking on people here. It would be very easy to do that. And I'm not going to, but you know, have a think. Public image really is advertising. And the principles of advertising are quite simple. It's AIDA, they call it, AIDA. Get someone's attention, get their interest, create a desire, and make sure there's an action at the end of it. And we seem to do parts of that very well. I don't think we necessarily are very good at grabbing the attention. And Kath's already spoken about some of the dreadful Facebook posts that we see. And I, a bit like Kath, spend every day tearing my hair out looking at most of them, because they're absolutely shocking. And certainly if you were not a Rotarian, if I wasn't looking at a Rotary from a Rotary point of view, I would skip right over them. No interest whatsoever, because there's nothing there to make you stop and think, oh, what's going on in that photograph? What are people doing there? And that then means that people are not getting the interest in Rotary, which is what the attention should be doing. And therefore, we're not creating that desire. And we never, or very, very seldom, do we get any action. And the reason is because the action, ultimately, what we want is members. The action should really be for someone to be motivated enough to say, I want some of that. I want to get in there. That looks really good. I'm really interested in what they're doing. And there's a very simple way of getting that action. That's to ask people. But unless you've started off by creating this interest, by getting their desire up, then that, you know, asking them 100 times is not going to be any good. And by the way, just because you've asked someone once and they've said no, doesn't mean to say you can't ask them again. From a sales background, I don't know how many of you are from a sales background, but from a sales background, we were always told, you're probably going to have to ask for the business 5 times before you get it. So I always stand by the fact that if I've not asked someone 5 times to join Rotary, then I've not done it properly yet. And finally, when we get back to this, the advertising and getting the attention again, and as I say, we've got to be cynical. We've got to look at this like a business. If you're ASDA, you do not put an advert out there telling people how your tills work. And yet that's pretty much what's happening so much of the time, especially on Facebook. Look at us handing a chain over. Look at us doing this. Look at us giving a Paul Harris. The Paul Harris thing is doing my nut in at the moment. You know, so many people getting Paul Harris's. Big deal. The public do not know what a Paul Harris is. And what's more, the public don't really care what a Paul Harris is. It is making no emotional connection with them whatsoever. So, you know, as I say, ASDA don't advertise how their tills work. They advertise their prices and how good their stuff is. And that's what we should be doing as well. But have a think about this. Be more cynical when we're thinking about what we put out there as far as public image is concerned. Because what we're doing right now is pretty dreadful. And I'll pass back to Brian.
Thanks, Alistair. Okay, Philip.
So we've mentioned there just that Alistair said the Facebook posts are rubbish. I would like to point at some of our websites. They cover a different audience. They convey a different style of message. But many of our district's club websites are appalling. They do exactly what Alistair says. They say, this is when our meeting is. This is when we were chartered. There were 34 members of the club. there are pictures from 2020, and they don't make sense. And certainly in Kiri, Dave and I have had long conversations about what we can do to kind of change this. I worry that if we all change, we'll have 80 different brands and 80 different messages, but we've got to start somewhere. And I'd just like people to remember that we have to fix the digital presence as well as the physical presence and the paper presence, if you call that the traditional press. And somebody said in the chat, this is all going to cost money, and that's a problem. But we need to be aware of it.
Philip,
yes,
Wardhall, could I ask you, can you give us some thoughts of how you would want to change the Facebook page initially?
I was talking about our websites. Many of our websites use the template website, which has been provided very kindly by the GBI, and 10 years ago when it was created was brilliant. I think if you click on a random selection, if you go to the district homepage and click on clubs, you can click on a random selection, and they're not fit for purpose. The best ones are the ones that have actually opted out of that. But then everybody's having to do their own thing, and it doesn't give you that consistency if we got that brand. It's difficult to give advice. I think you've got to think of your audience. Who are you trying to convey what message? For example, people probably don't come to your website daily to see what's going on. They probably come to your website to say, how do I get money from you? I know you're a charity that give out money. Click here to fill in a form to apply for a grant, or click here to join. We want the actions that people want to do when they come to the site to be there. We also want it to have a contemporary look and feel. We don't want things behind deep menus because you can't find them. If you're on a desktop and you hover a mouse over it, you maybe get the menu. If you're on a phone or an iPad, those hover menus don't work. So most of the site is actually obscure. You can't see it. So you need to engage with people who understand what the message is. We need to engage with people who are technically minded, who can create this stuff. And probably, ideally, we'd have designers giving you something that looks good and is contemporary. So I hope that answers it. It's not a good answer to say, do this, do that, but it's indicating what we need to do is think about the audience and the message we want to give them, and make sure that 80% of your audience sees what they want to do on the homepage, and it's one click away. Every click loses half of the audience. It's a well-known, maybe apocryphal, but it's well-known fact of web pages that if you don't make it snappy and it's too many clicks deep, they'll give in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Philip. But I think there is a very wide question about club websites and district websites, and Philip, Dave and I have been having that discussion about how the district website should be constructed and what should be there.
Can I come in on that? Can I come in on that, Brian? I'll just expand on a wee bit on what Philip's saying. We have a struggle with websites, like a lot of us, and how to get things on to the district, the RGBI sites. So what Kiri is doing is we're setting up a website away from the RGBI sites, and we want to look at that, and if we can get it working properly, then we can share that with other clubs, and that way we can perhaps get a more corporate image coming out. Philip's extremely good on technology, and we've another chap that's just joined, a new member, who is as keen as anything to help us with the technology side of things, and he will help any other club that requires it. But I think if district is happy, then if we can work on that over the next few weeks, if we can get it looking good and make it easier to post, because to get onto the RGBI sites, I mean, we were talking about Friday night, it's something like 20 steps to get anything up on the site. If we can use something simpler, then it means we can keep things fresh. And that's the way Kerry's looking at it. The other things that we're doing, and you know, just talking about speaking to people. There was an event in Kerry at the weekend, and I was particularly keen to go along to it, not to raise any money, but we've a clothing hub running like a couple of other clubs in the district. And we've been trying to get volunteers. And in the last 10 days, we've changed the way we're looking for volunteers. We've changed the wording. So something as simple as changing the wording. And as Alistair has said, asking for help and not being frightened to ask for help. We've actually ended up with 8 or 9 new volunteers for the clothing hub. So it shows by changing the way we do things, and it doesn't have to be much, but by asking, then we will get people. Now, out of these 10 people, if we can convert 2 of them to new members, then I think that's a good score. And I think we'll get that from them. And if they don't become members, at least we know we can go and ask them to help us. So that's just a couple of things we've done recently. The same event, there was only 3 of us there, but we were chatting to other groups. And we've now built a link with one of the women's institutes. We've got a chance to go and speak to them. Initially about the clothing hub, but we'll obviously expand on what we as a Rotary do. And we've also tied in now with the first aid group from the Angus Scouts. And they're looking to help us as we'll help them. So just by talking to people, it makes a huge difference. So even in the last couple of weeks, by changing the way we are doing things, we're seeing a difference.
Good. Thanks, Dave. We're just on websites. The RGBI website is being revamped so that people can find stuff more easily. And the district website, we still got a lot to do on that. And I think clubs need to look carefully at what they want there. You know, is it transient Facebook posts? I know when I travel, I always look at local website, Rotary Club websites, find out when they meet. Is it suitable to go along? Where is it going to happen? Right, we're at 20 past, so time is running out. David from Ridgeval and Dunblane.
Thank you very much. Some good stuff on tonight, which is great. Getting the message out, I think, is very, very difficult because Rotary does a huge amount. I'm not blowing a trumpet because I've still to get results from something we're doing, which is an awareness day. An awareness day, which is basically a membership acquisition day. And we're inviting people specifically to an event where we very quickly and hopefully briefly explain to them how big Rotary International is, but indeed, much more important, what we do in the community. Now, we started this idea off and we found out that Grangemouth had done it very successfully. And could somebody just confirm or deny that Grangemouth falls within District 1010?
No.
No, okay, well, that's fine. But they were very successful in the venture they did. And it just turns out, coincidentally, that we're following a similar model. So we're quite excited about this. We are running it not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. We're very happy to report back to districts how successful or not this is going to be.
Thank you, David. Now we're past 20 past, so I'm going to time limit everybody. I'll just go in with Rob from Afford first, which is the wrong order. We've not heard much from Rob. Thank you, David.
I was impressed by what David just said, and particularly what John Allen was saying earlier on. But I feel that what we should be doing is looking at what our actual strengths are, rather than what we would like our strengths to be, which we don't really seem to have them. And what our real interests are. For me, we really should be focusing on the old Rotary system of approaching people hands-on, really getting to know your community, finding out who is in the community and having a hands-on approach to influencing and trying to show what it is that they might be able to achieve. I was particularly impressed by John's idea about perhaps, I think maybe I'm not putting words in his mouth, I hope, but being mentors for businesses in the community. I think there's a lot that we could, of individual and group skills that we could use that might look at it in a different way, as opposed from continuously trying to bring in young people who aren't ready or able to really join us. I know some can, but most don't. Just look around at the people here, and the 50 nearly of us here, we're not in that group. That's all I wanted to say, sorry.
Right, thank you, Rob. You speak for yourself. Some young
I
people.
know.
Age is just a number, bloody big number, but it's just a number. Right, just very briefly, now we'll wind up. John.
Just a quick one on the number of websites. I know this from, like, you know, in financial services. I used to manage a team doing brochureware, as it's called, for like lots of websites around the planet. They have one content tool that updates all the sites. So rather than every individual club going off and paying for its own individual website to be built and having to then manage it and all the skill sets, it's exceptionally expensive because you need to keep on refreshing it every 18 to 24 months. So if we could, I like the idea of the RGBI one. Like, the only problem I've got with it, the implementation's poor. The concept is sound, but we need the ability that the content we've got in there to be embedded in the Facebook, the Twitter, the TikToks, and the new social media channels that are yet to come through, and get that omni-channel experience. And whilst that's a technical thing, the first thing we've got to really do is, going back to Rob's point, there, is that we need to capture the strengths. What are the benefits of Rotary? And that's actually what we're doing. That's why we push that up, to really just try and use as a mirror to look back at ourselves and saying, why do we like it? What are we gaining from it? And then asking and engaging with prospective members, what are they looking for from a club? That's it.
Thank you. Now, Lindsay, I think you put a comment in the chat. Does that cover what you were going to say?
Yes, it does. Other people might not be reading it. I was just going to ask, will there be a grant this year available for membership and public image activities? And you say yes in the chat. So do we approach you about this?
I think you come through.
Yes.
Through David, yes, through David Hoskins.
There's a small sum. I'd get in quick.
So don't hold your breath.
Okay, so what's the upper limit on applications?
I would say put your application in, and we can look at it and see what we've got available for you.
Yeah, we'll get that information.
I think there's about 3,000. I think there's about £3,000 in the pot.
Careful, Ken's and tears in the background here.
Something like that. So there's a few pounds kicking about.
Okay,
I'm sure if you get some help, you'll be delighted.
Can I sum up from my point of view for a couple of minutes, and I'll pass back to Dave. What I'm picking up on is, we know all the negatives. I think we're all agreed on all the negatives. What we need is passion. We need to tell people what Rotary does, make it easy to find out what we do. Very careful about what you put on social media. You can undo so much. And Ken's point from earlier, what you're going to do now. So I will issue a personal challenge to everybody. Just work out what you're going to do, change it, make it better. And we'll have a check round at the weekend. We know where you live, so we'll have a look what you're doing. Okay, so just do something. We've had a good chat about stuff. We need to do something. So can I pass back to Dave Hoskins to finish off.
Thanks, Brian. Alistair Robb's just put up a note saying that his membership seminar or get together is on Saturday morning. The link was in the vision that went out to everybody. It's 10 o'clock, and I see the links on vision. I think it's been a good evening. It's where I wanted to go, get the ideas coming through, and I'd like to come back again and let's think of ideas that we can put into practice, and let's share. I think there's not enough sharing goes on in the district, and I think we should be sharing ideas more often. What works for one may not work for another, but maybe with a little bit of adjustment, it will. But if we can share ideas, then it will make a huge difference. Help each other. We're all in this together. We're all Rotarians. We're not separate entities. We may meet in separate areas, but at the end of the day, we're all working to the same end. Service above self. We're people of action, and we've got to get that out there. So thanks for coming along, folks.
Can I just get a last word?
Aye, surely.
That's not what you can.
First of all, thanks Brian and Dave for putting this together. It's been a good discussion. This is a fabulous organisation that does so much good. We need to sell it. We need to sell it on our Facebook, on our web pages, in our media, in the press, and everywhere else. We need to sell what people want to be able to join Rotary, what we're good at. Tell them what we're good at, but make our product, what we're selling, is what people want. And just to help that, and to help the public image, I'm going to give you a challenge. We come along to the district council meeting in the end of September, and I'll put something up valued at about $800, £600 for the club that comes up with the best thing. It'll come up with public image and foundation. But I'll be challenging clubs to come up with good ideas. It'll also give us great public image as well. So that'll be at District Council towards the end of September, and I look forward to seeing you there. But thanks again to Dave and to Brian for tonight. Thank you.
Thanks all for your contribution. Thank you. Right, good night,
folks.